At dinner, my sister announced that my newly renovated bedroom belonged to her daughter, and my parents decided I could sleep on my own couch. So I put my house up for sale overnight and moved away for good. For a few seconds, the only sound in my dining room was the soft crackle of the fireplace and the clinking of my mother's fork against her plate. I stared at my sister Karina, convinced I had mistered her. "What room?" I asked. Karina gave me an impatient look. She was wearing the cream sweater I had bought her the previous Christmas. The one she had complained was not quite the right shade of ivory. Beside her, my 9-year-old niece Lily was carefully separating peas from mashed potatoes with the edge of her fork. "Your spare bedroom," Karina said. "The one upstairs with the window seat. Lily loves it. She needs a stable place to sleep while I get everything sorted out." My hand tightened around my wine glass. The bedroom she was talking about had not been a spare bedroom for very long. For almost 2 years, it had been a neglected box of a room with warped flooring, cracked plaster, and an ancient radiator that groaned like it was haunted. 3 months earlier, after years of delaying anything that felt remotely indulgent, I had finally renovated it. I spent $19,000, new hardwood floors, custom shelves, a built-in reading nook beneath the bay window, soft sage green walls, linen curtains, a proper mattress, warm lighting, a small desk where I sometimes reviewed patient files when I did not want to sit in my office downstairs. It was peaceful. After 12-hour shifts at the veterinary clinic, after emergency surgeries and frightened animals and owners crying into my shoulder, that room had become the quietest place in my life. Karina knew all of this. She had watched me choose the paint samples. She had sent me links to lamps she thought would look good on the bedside table. She had even joked that it looked nicer than most hotel rooms she could afford. Now she was claiming it for her daughter, as though my house were a hotel she had booked without telling me. I glanced at Lily. She had stopped moving peas around her plate. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes were fixed downward. None of this was her fault. "What exactly are you talking about?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. Karina sighed dramatically. "My lease is ending. I told you that. You told me your landlord was raising the rent, which means I cannot justify renewing it. That is not the same thing as telling me you are moving into my house." Dad set his fork down with a sharp little scrape. "Angela," he said, using the tone he had perfected when I was a child, slow, heavy, disappointed. "Your sister is going through a difficult transition." Karina leaned back in her chair, folding her arms. "I am not asking for much." "You have not asked for anything," I replied. "You announced that my bedroom belongs to your daughter." Mom gave me a pleading look from the other end of the table. "Let's not make Christmas unpleasant." I almost laughed. The dining room smelled like roasted turkey cinnamon candles, and the expensive pine garland Mom had insisted I buy because my old decorations were a little sad. I had worked until nearly midnight the previous evening after an emergency surgery on a Labrador that swallowed part of a plastic toy. Then I had woken up at 6 o'clock to start cooking for everyone. Karina arrived 40 minutes late with Lily and an empty container because she wanted leftovers. Dad brought wine he knew I did not drink. Mom criticized my tablecloth before taking off her coat. And somehow 5 minutes into dinner, I was the one threatening to make Christmas unpleasant. "How long are you planning to stay?" I asked. Karina shrugged. "I do not know. A few months, maybe longer. The housing market is ridiculous." "And where will you sleep?" Another pause. Karina looked at Dad. Dad cleared his throat. "Well," he said, "obviously Lily needs the renovated bedroom. She needs stability. Karina can take your room temporarily." I blinked. "My bedroom." "You have a perfectly good couch downstairs," Dad said. "It pulls out, does it not?" For one strange, suspended moment, I could hear every sound in the room with unnatural clarity. The clock ticking on the wall, the wind brushing against the windows, the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, Lily's small intake of breath. I looked around the table at the 3 adults waiting for me to agree that the logical solution to my sister's financial problems was for me to surrender my entire house room by room until I was sleeping on a pull-out couch in my own living room. Dad's expression was firm. Mom's was anxious but hopeful. Karina's was almost bored. They truly believed I would say yes. That was the worst part. Not the entitlement, not even the assumption, the certainty. They had spent years training me to be reasonable, generous, and accommodating. They had learned that I would complain quietly, lose sleep privately, and eventually do whatever made everyone else's life easier. They did not realize that something inside me had finally gone silent. I lifted my wine glass, took a small sip, and nodded. "All right," I said. Karina's shoulders relaxed immediately. "Thank you," Mom whispered. Dad picked up his fork again as if the matter had been settled appropriately. Karina smiled and turned to Lily. See, I told you Aunt Angelica would understand. Lily did not smile back. I finished dinner, served dessert, wrapped leftovers, loaded the dishwasher, and kissed my parents goodbye at the door. Karina lingered behind them, scrolling through her phone while Lily zipped up her coat. I will bring some boxes over next weekend, she said. You should move your medical paperwork out of the desk. Lily will need space for homework. I leaned against the doorframe. What about your furniture? I will sell most of it. There is no point paying for storage. And your boyfriend? Her eyes flickered. What about him? Is Marcus moving in too? Karina rolled her eyes. Not immediately. Maybe later, depending on how things go. We have not discussed it properly. Of course they have not. Karina was 34 years old. She had always treated planning as something other people did on her behalf. She drifted from emergency to emergency, each one somehow landing in my lap, wrapped in the language of family obligation. When she lost her job at a boutique fitness studio 3 years earlier, I covered her rent for 4 months. When she needed a deposit for a new apartment after separating from Lily's father, I transferred $3,200 without hesitation. When Lily's school organized a week-long science camp Karina could not afford, I paid for that too, because Lily deserved to go. When Karina's car needed repairs, when her electricity bill was overdue, when she wanted to take an online marketing course she never finished, she called me. Sometimes she asked sweetly, sometimes she cried, sometimes Mom called first to prepare me. The money always left my account. It rarely came back. I loved my niece. That was the lever they used most often. You do not want Lily to suffer because of adult problems, do you? No, I did not. But somewhere along the way, preventing Lily from suffering had become indistinguishable from preventing Karina from facing the consequences of her own choices. That night, after everyone left, I walked upstairs and stood in the doorway of the renovated bedroom. Moonlight spilled across the oak floor. The linen curtains shifted slightly above the radiator. A book I had been reading sat open on the window seat beside a folded blanket. I remembered the week the contractors finished. I had come home after losing an elderly golden retriever during surgery. I knew the dog was unlikely to survive when the owner brought him in, but I had tried anyway. Afterward, I sat alone in that room with my shoes still on and cried until the sky turned dark. It was not just a spare bedroom. It was the first thing I had ever created entirely for myself. No practical justification, no family emergency, no guilt attached. I sat down on the window seat, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen. Then I called Naomi. She answered on the 4th ring, her voice thick with sleep. Is everything okay? Do you have an emergency? Naomi had been my friend since university. She was also the real estate agent who helped me buy the house 6 years earlier. I want to sell, I said. There was a pause. Sell what? My house. Another pause. Your house. Yes. At 11:45 on Christmas night. Yes. Naomi woke up quickly after that. Are you serious? Completely. What happened? My family decided to move into it. She let out a long breath. Without asking you, they asked after deciding. Did you say no? I nodded. Angelica, I am done arguing with people who believe my answer is negotiable. Naomi was silent for a moment. Then her voice became businesslike. All right, the neighborhood is hot. Your renovations will help. You have good equity. Are you thinking standard listing timeline? No. What are you thinking cash buyers only as is sale? Fast closing 14 days. That will reduce your pool. I know you may leave money on the table. I know. Do you have somewhere to go? I can rent a furnished townhouse near the clinic for a few months. Dr. Lean has been trying to convince me to buy into the practice and move closer. Anyway, Naomi knew about the offer. My boss, Dr. Lean, planned to retire gradually over the next 2 years. He had offered me a partnership stake in the veterinary clinic and access to a small cottage owned by the practice. While I decided where I wanted to live, I had delayed giving him an answer because buying into the clinic felt enormous. Selling my house felt even more enormous. But sitting in that beautiful room while my sister planned where to place her daughter's school books and my father assigned me to the couch, the decision suddenly felt simple. The house was mine. That meant I could sell it. Naomi came over at midnight wearing leggings, a wool coat over her pajamas, and the expression of a woman who had heard enough stories about my family to understand that asking too many questions would only waste time. We drank coffee at my kitchen island and built the listing. I already had professional photos from the renovation. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, updated kitchen, finished basement, fenced yard, quiet street, move-in, Ready cash offers prioritize closing within 14 days preferred. By 2:30 in the morning, the listing was live. At 6:45, Naomi texted me, I have 3 showing requests already. 1 cash investor, 1 couple relocating for work, 1 buyer represented by an agent I trust. I'm putting the sign up now. I stood at the upstairs window in my robe and watched her hammer the post into my front lawn. The sign looked almost cheerful against the snow. For sale. The phone rang at 7:12. Mom. I let it ring twice before answering. Good morning. What is on your lawn? She demanded. Her voice was so loud that I had to pull the phone away from my ear. I assume you mean the sign. Why is there a for sale sign in front of your house? Because the house is for sale. There was a stunned silence. Mom drove past my street every weekday on her way to work at the dental office. I pictured her slowing down in her little silver car, coffee in the cup holder, staring at the sign as though someone had placed a tombstone in my yard overnight. You are selling your house, she asked. Yes. Since when? Since last night. Does your father know I have not spoken to him this morning? What about Karina? What about her mom? Made a strangled sound. Angelica. This is not funny. I agree. You cannot sell your house because of one conversation at Christmas dinner. I can sell my house for any reason I choose. Your sister has already given notice to her landlord. That made me sit up straighter. When Mom hesitated. When? What? When did she give notice? Another pause. Last week. I stared at the kitchen wall. So Karina ended her lease before speaking to me. She assumed you would help. She assumed correctly. I am helping her understand the danger of making plans with property that does not belong to her. Mom's voice sharpened. That is cruel. No. Cruel would be promising Lily a bedroom in someone else's home and making me the villain when reality interferes. She needs stability. Then Karina should provide it. You have 3 bedrooms. I also have 1 house. Apparently that created confusion. So I am simplifying the situation. Mom hung up on me. At 7:28, Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. At 7:31, Karina called. I let that go to voicemail too. At 7:40, someone pounded on my front door hard enough to rattle the glass. I opened it to find Karina standing on the porch in sweatpants, an unbuttoned coat, and the same boots she had worn the night before. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot. Her face was pale with fury. What the hell is wrong with you? She shouted. A curtain shifted in the house across the street. I stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind me. Lower your voice. You listed the house. Yes, you cannot do that. I already did. We had a plan. You had a plan. You said, all right? I said, all right? Because I was tired of explaining basic ownership to 3 adults during Christmas dinner. She stared at me. You are selling your entire house just to spite me. No, I am selling my house because I realized owning it made you believe you were entitled to occupy it. Where is Lily supposed to go with you? My apartment lease ends next week. Then renew it. I cannot afford the increase. Find a smaller apartment. Her mouth fell open. A smaller apartment? Do you hear yourself? Lily needs her own room. I agree, and you have one for the next 14 days. The front door opened behind me. Lily stood there in her coat looking frightened. Karina spun around. I told you to wait in the car. I need the bathroom, Lily said softly. I stepped aside immediately. Of course. Go inside, sweetheart. When the door closed again, I looked at my sister. Do not bring her into this. Karina's eyes flashed. She is already in this. You are making her homeless. No, you gave up your lease without permission to move into my house. You made that decision. You would really choose money over your niece. There it was, the familiar blade polished through years of use. I folded my arms against the cold. I have paid your rent. I paid your deposit. I covered Lily's camp fees, school supplies, dental work, and birthday parties. I have transferred you money so many times that my banking app automatically suggests your name when I open it. Do not stand on my porch and pretend I have failed your daughter because I refused to sleep on a couch in the house I bought. Her expression shifted only for a second. Not guilt. Calculation. Not guilt. Calculation. You always make everything about money because you always ask me for money. Family is supposed to help each other. Name the last time you helped me. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Nothing came out. I waited, snowflakes caught in her hair. You do not need help, she said finally. You have your career. You have savings. You have this perfect life. I almost laughed. My life did not appear by magic, Karina. I built it while cleaning cages at university. I studied while working overnight shifts. I paid off student loans while you changed jobs every 6 months because your managers were supposedly jealous of you. I earned every peaceful corner of this house. You think you are better than me? No, I think I am responsible for me. Lily came back outside a minute later. Her cheeks were pink from the cold. She avoided looking at either of us. I crouched to zip her coat properly. Are you okay? I asked. She nodded, but her eyes were glossy. Mom said I was getting your pretty room. I swallowed. I know. Did I do something wrong? The question hit me harder than anything Karina had said. No, I told her. Absolutely not. You did nothing wrong. Adults made a mistake. It is not your job to fix it. Behind her, Karina looked away. By noon, Naomi had scheduled 6 showings. By evening, we had 2 cash offers. The strongest came from a retired teacher named Mr. Bennett, who was moving closer to his daughter after his wife died. He liked the downstairs bedroom because his knees were not good, the fenced yard because he planned to adopt a dog, and the reading nook because his granddaughter visited on weekends. His offer was clean. No financing contingency, no demand for repairs closing in 14 days. I accepted it. The next morning, Dad arrived at my clinic. I was in the treatment room examining an orange tabby named Pumpkin, who had decided to attack a Christmas ribbon and lost the argument. My technician Rosa leaned into the doorway. Angelica, she said quietly, there is a man at reception asking for you. He says he is your father. I closed my eyes for a second. Tell him I am with a patient. He says he will wait. Dad waited 45 minutes. When I finally stepped into the lobby, he stood near the display of pet dental care brochures in his long wool coat, visibly irritated that the world had not stopped for him. We need to talk, he said. I have 10 minutes before my next appointment. This is not something we discuss in 10 minutes. Then it will have to wait. He followed me into the small consultation room and closed the door. What you are doing is irrational, he said. I accepted an offer this morning. His face changed. You, what? The buyer is closing in 13 days. You need to cancel it. No, Angelica, stop behaving like a child. I leaned against the counter. I am not the one giving away someone else's bedroom. His jaw tightened. Your sister is struggling. She has been struggling for a decade. She is a single mother. She has received child support for 9 years. She works. She has options. What she does not have is the right to take my house. Nobody is taking your house. You told me to sleep on the couch temporarily so that Karina could have my bedroom and Lily could have the room I renovated for a few months. And Marcus? Dad frowned. What about Marcus? Karina said he might move in later. For the first time, Dad looked surprised. She did not mention that. Of course she did not. He looked toward the door, then back at me. You are blowing this out of proportion. No, Dad, I am ending the pattern. What pattern? The one where Karina makes a reckless decision. Mom panics. You call me selfish and I pay to solve it. His expression hardened. We are your family. I know you make good money. I know you live alone in a 3-bedroom house. I know. Then explain to me why helping your sister is such an unbearable sacrifice. I stared at him because it is never a sacrifice for the person asking. He opened his mouth, but I continued. I paid $4,800 toward Mom's dental work when insurance would not cover it. I paid for your transmission repair. I gave Karina $3,200 for her deposit. I covered 4 months of rent after she lost her job. I paid Lily's camp fees twice. I paid for Karina's marketing course. I loaned you money for the property taxes 3 years ago and never asked for it back. Dad shifted uncomfortably. I have helped this family for years. Gladly most of the time, but the moment I finally spend money on something for myself, Karina decides it belongs to her daughter. And you agree so completely that you assign me to the couch without even asking. His face reddened. Your niece is a child. Yes, which is why she deserves a mother who plants responsibly and grandparents who stop teaching her that stability means taking someone else's home. Dad left without saying goodbye. That weekend, things escalated. Karina posted a vague message on social media about how some people value property more than family and how difficult it was to explain adult cruelty to an innocent child. Several relatives called me. Aunt Marina said I was being dramatic. My cousin Elena suggested I delay the sale until Karina found a place. Mom sent me listings for 2-bedroom apartments as if I were Karina's personal assistant. Then on Sunday morning, while I was packing dishes into boxes, I heard a vehicle reverse into my driveway. I looked through the window. Karina had arrived with a rented van. Marcus was with her. So were Mom and Dad. For a moment, I simply stood there, holding a stack of plates wrapped in newspaper, unable to believe what I was seeing. Marcus opened the back of the van. Inside were boxes, a mattress, Lily's pink desk chair, 2 large suitcases. I walked outside without putting on a coat. What are you doing? Karina slammed the passenger door. Moving my things in before you do something even more irresponsible. The house is under contract. Then cancel it. No. Marcus rubbed his hands together against the cold. Look, Angelica, everyone is emotional. Maybe we can talk inside. You are not entering my house. His eyebrows rose. Seriously? Dad stepped forward. Enough. This has gone too far. I agree. Mom looked exhausted. Angelica, please. Karina has nowhere else to go. She has an apartment until the end of the month. She cannot afford the renewal, Mom said. Then she needs to find something she can afford. Karina pointed toward the van. We already paid for this rental. That was another poor decision. Her face twisted. You cold selfish. Do not finish that sentence, I said. Something in my voice made her stop. I walked to the keypad beside the garage and entered the new code. Naomi had suggested I set after the listing went live. The door lifted a few inches, then stopped when I pressed the button again. I changed the locks yesterday, I said. Your old emergency key no longer works. The garage code no longer works. The security cameras are recording. The buyer is sending an inspector this afternoon. You need to leave. Dad stared at me as though I had become someone unrecognizable. You changed the locks on your own family. No, I changed the locks on my house. Lily sat in the back seat of Karina's car, her face barely visible through the glass. That sight steadied me. I lowered my voice. I will say this once. Lily is welcome in my life. I will take her for weekends when it is arranged properly. I will help pay her school fees directly if she needs something important, but none of you will use her to force me into surrendering my home. Karina crossed her arms. So you get to play generous aunt while leaving us on the street. You are not on the street. You know what I mean? Yes, I said. I finally do. Marcus looked increasingly uncomfortable. Karina told me the arrangement was already agreed. It was not. He turned toward her. You said your sister offered. Karina's eyes narrowed. She would have eventually. That sentence exposed everything. Not a misunderstanding, not desperation, a strategy. Push hard enough. Bring Lily into it. Get Mom emotional. Let Dad apply pressure. Arrive with boxes. Create a situation too uncomfortable for me to resist. It had probably worked before in smaller ways. This time there was a Ferralla sign on the lawn and a signed contract on Naomi's desk. Marcus stepped away from the van. I am not getting involved in this, he muttered. Karina spun toward him. You already are involved. No, you told me we were moving into a family property temporarily. You did not tell me you were forcing your sister out of her bedroom. It is not like that. He looked toward me, embarrassed. It sounds exactly like that. He left 10 minutes later in a rideshare. Karina cried. Mom blamed me. Dad said I had humiliated everyone. I stood in the driveway in my socks freezing and watched them unload nothing. The van drove away full. 13 days after Christmas, I signed the closing documents. Mr. Bennett shook my hand with both of his. I hope you know how much I appreciate this. He said my granddaughter has already claimed that window seat upstairs. I smiled. It is a good place to read. I am thinking about getting a dog too. He said something older, calm, maybe a rescue. That made me smile properly. Call the clinic when you are ready. I know several dogs who deserve a quiet home. By the end of January, I had moved into the cottage near the veterinary practice. It was smaller than my house, 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, a tiny fenced garden with a crooked apple tree and a wooden bench beneath it. The first night I sat on the living room floor surrounded by half-open boxes eating noodles from a takeout container because I had not unpacked the plates yet. It should have felt like a loss. Instead, I slept better than I had in years. Doctor. Levin and I finalized the partnership agreement in March. For the first time in my career, I was not simply working endless hours for a salary. I was helping shape the clinic's future. I hired another technician, expanded our emergency care schedule, and started a small fund for owners who could not afford urgent treatment for their pets. I also adopted a dog. Her name was Mabel, a senior beagle mix with cloudy eyes, arthritis, and an unreasonable hatred of delivery trucks. She slept beneath the apple tree when the weather was warm and followed me from room to room as though making sure I did not disappear. Karina found a 2-bedroom apartment 20 minutes from Lily's school. It was smaller than the place she gave up, but it was clean and safe. She took extra shifts at work. Marcus did not move in. From what Mom eventually told me, that relationship ended shortly after the van incident. Apparently, Marcus had been under the impression that Karina had a long-term housing plan. Discovering that her plan involved removing me from my own bedroom made him reconsider several things. For the first month, Karina did not speak to me. Then Lily called from her tablet. "Can I come see Mabel?" she asked. Of course. She spent the following Saturday at the cottage. We baked cookies. We walked Mabel slowly around the block. We sat under the crooked apple tree drinking hot chocolate while Lily told me about school before Karina picked her up. Lily hesitated near the front door. "Mom says you sold the house because of us." I knelt so we were eye level. "I sold the house because I needed a change. Because I wanted the green room." "No," I said gently. "Wanting something is not wrong, but adults have to ask before making plans with things that belong to other people." She thought about that. Mom should have asked. Yes, and Grandpa should not have said you could sleep on the couch. I smiled despite myself. No, he should not have said that. Lily hugged me around the neck. "I like your cottage better anyway. It has Mabel." After she left, I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching Karina's car disappear at the end of the street. Mom apologized eventually. Not perfectly. Not all at once. She came to the cottage one Sunday carrying a lemon cake and walked through the rooms quietly, noticing that there was no couch waiting to swallow my life. No family luggage stacked in corners. No evidence that I had ruined myself by refusing to be useful. "I thought you would change your mind," she admitted. "I know. I thought you would calm down and realize selling the house was extreme." "It was extreme," she looked surprised, "but it was also necessary," I continued. "Because none of you believed me when I said the house was mine. The only boundary you understood was a closing date." Mom looked down at her hands. "We should not have put you in that position." "No, I worry about Karina. So do I. But worrying about her is not the same as rescuing her from every consequence." Mom nodded slowly. Dad took longer. He did not apologize directly. That was not his style. But several months later on my birthday, he sent me a message. "I drove past the old house today. There was a dog in the yard. The new owner seems to be taking care of the place. I understand why you did it even if I did not at the time." I read the message twice. Then I replied, "Thank you." It was not forgiveness for everything. It was not a dramatic reconciliation. It was a beginning. As for Karina, our relationship changed permanently. She stopped asking me for money, the first time Lily needed new glasses. Karina mentioned the cost during a phone call and then quickly added, "I am not asking. I already budgeted for them." It was a small sentence, but it told me she understood. Maybe not everything, maybe not completely, but enough. Sometimes I think about the room I renovated. I picture the sage green walls and the linen curtains. I imagine Mr. Bennett's granddaughter curled up on the window seat with a book while an old rescue dog sleeps on the floor nearby. I do not regret spending $1,000 on that room. I do not regret leaving it behind either. The renovation taught me something I should have learned years earlier. Peace is expensive. Not only because hardwood floors and custom shelves cost money, peace is expensive because once people become comfortable benefiting from your silence, protecting yourself will always feel cruel to them. For years, I thought being the dependable daughter meant solving every emergency. I thought being a good sister meant giving until there was nothing left that felt entirely mine. I thought loving my niece meant allowing her mother to use my affection as leverage. I was wrong. Stability is not taking someone else's bedroom. Family is not a permission slip to ignore boundaries. And generosity is not measured by how quietly you let people erase you. That Christmas, my family told me I could sleep on the couch in my own home. By sunrise, the house was for sale. 14 days later, I handed over the keys. For the first time in my life, I kept something far more valuable.